Hi there, my name's Lucy and this is my YouTube channel, my little space in the world where I can come to you and talk to you about all the things that I make. Today I'm going to be focusing on making the Jas Bag. The Jas Bag is a bag that I've been released into the world in where we are now, September 2025, which has been co-designed with my colleague Donna. The Jas Bag is a lovely small bag that's available in 2 sizes, and I'm going to walk through some of those key features with you in just a moment. For today's make, I'm going to be using my Janome machine, my MC9480QC, kindly gifted to me by Janome. It's a wonderful machine, and it's a machine I love to use when I'm working on bags because it will just go through those layers quite beautifully. And today I'm going to be using a number of the feet available in this machine to make light work of some of the slightly more tricky jobs. Now let me tell you a little bit about the bag. Like I say, it's available in 2 sizes. There's the larger bag and then there's a smaller bag. It's not a huge difference, but it's just enough. The large bag is available, the height is a 5.5 inch, which is the same as this one here, 5.5 inches. This is a width of 8 inches, where this is 6.5 inches, and the depth is 5.5 inches by 4.5 inches. The bag itself has 3 different settings just underneath the clip here. So it's got its handle on the top, and then we unclip it with the cam snaps, and we've got multiple fastenings just to the inside, 1, 2, 3, and same on the other side. This allows the lid, as it were, this bit here, to be adjusted depending on how full our bag is. If we go to the inside of the bag, we've got this lovely firm pouch, and it's got this gusset area here that we can pull with the drawstring. To the right hand side, we've got a number of pockets. Starting off here, we've got a little cam snap pocket just here that we can keep all of our bits and our notions in, with another slip pocket just behind it. And then under this clever little bit of an elastic and flap, we've got space here so we can slip different items inside, such as pens, crochet hooks, all different things like that. To this side of the bag, we've got 2 zips. So to this side, we've got a vinyl pocket, and on this side, we've got a pocket that's been concealed with fabric that's been fully lined throughout. So as you can see, there's a number of features to the bag. It makes it a really enjoyable make, and it's finished by doing some beautiful binding to the edge when it's all complete. People tell me they want to use these for different things. What would you use yours for? Are you going to keep your craft things in it, or are you going to be keeping little toys in it? Have you got a grandchild where if this was in children's fabrics, they could take it out and they go and collect the favourite stones or beads? Maybe they've got little bits of jewellery, trinkets, colouring things. It will all fit in here. The smaller bag, there is no difference. The inside is exactly the same. It's just, of course, we've downsized some of those compartments just down the side here, but it is effectively all the same. This area here is nicely padded, so if you would rather use it for snacks and to carry your mug in or anything like that, then you can pop your cup in here, and of course on this side you can put your biscuits, your tea bags and things like that. Like I say, there's so many options of what you can use these bags for. Makes them really fun to make, use, and to, of course, gift. This is the first one that I made, and this was what you can see within the pattern. And in mine, if I open it up, I've kept in here some of my favourite tools that I will be using today. So for example, I've got my rotary cutter in this pocket here. In here, I've got some of the tapes I'm going to be using. And over here, I've got things like my unpicker, because, you know, let's get real, we all need our unpicker. I've got some of my marking pens in 2 different colours to make sure that the colours will show up on the fabrics I'm going to use. And I've got my awl. I like to use the awl when I'm working around some of those more complicated curves, or when I really need to get in close to something and I don't want to get my fingers close to the needle. So that is just a couple of Jas Bags for you to consider. Looks great in all sorts of fabrics. So I would say dive into your bucket, see what you've got available, and just have fun. Let me tell you, these 2 bags here were actually made by a beginner sewer. I gave Sarah these to make, or I asked her, should I say, because she is new, and I wanted to be sure and comfortable in giving you this message now. yes, you can make it. She's a beginner and she made these incredibly successful. Incredibly successful. She made a successful job of both of these bags. I think we can all agree they look tremendous. So my answer is yes, you can make it. I've broken down the instructions so you can just make one small section at a time. Follow the advice, follow the guidance, look at the pictures, cross-reference it with this video and check in that you're doing everything right. Don't skip ahead, just follow the pattern verbatim all the way through. And of course, remember, if you truly are stuck, contact me. I am always here to help you. If you do enjoy seeing what I've made today, please do consider subscribing to my YouTube channel to see more of my content, to scroll back on some of the videos I've previously made, picking up more hints, tips and tricks that I can share with you. Before we get started, I thought it'd be helpful to run through some of the key items that I'll be using today, some of those tools that we're going to reach for to help us through our make. I'm going to start off with our ruler. Now, the ruler is going to be really good for obviously guiding us as we make some of those long, straight cuts when we get working through the pattern pieces. And of course, the measurements. The measurements are shown on the pattern being in inches, and obviously this is in inches too. It's a 6.5 by the 12-inch ruler. Alongside that, I'm also going to be using my PRYM Love rotary cutter. This is a safety ruler rotary cutter that I use an awful lot in my work. It means that it's currently in the lock position, but when I flick it over, now when I make contact, you can see already it's going to start releasing that blade. Just makes it a little bit safer, and of course it's got the trusty Kai blade in there. Alongside that, I'm going to be using my PRYM scissors. These are the micro serration scissors, nice and sharp, and I'll be using those throughout, along with a small set of snips. I've also got 2 friction pens. I'm going to use the purple one and the blue one, and I'll decide as I go which one I need to use, dependent on whether it stands out against the colour of the fabric. So if I'm using a blue fabric, then I'd probably veer away from the blue and I'd head to the purple so I can make sure it stands out. And of course, when I'm done with those lines, I'll then just take the product to the iron and I'll be able to just iron away any lines. I'll be using my stitch and pick. Well, I mean, I'd like to say I won't actually be using this, but in truth, I think we all know that at some point I'm going to have to undo a few stitches or two. I mentioned previously I like to use my awl. This is just a sharp point that I can use when I need to work close to the needle, but of course I don't want my fingers to be getting in the way of the needle. I'll just, instead of using my finger, I'll use this just to press down and help guide any fabric through the machine. I will also be reaching for my tape. This is a couple of 1/8 of an inch wide and it's double-sided, and I'll use that when it comes to popping in some of those zips just to keep things stable as we work. I'm obviously going to be using pins throughout, and I'll be using my clips as well. I like to have a good range of clips, particularly when it comes to putting in the binding. I'll then be using a number of machine feet, and this is of course optional. I've got my standard foot on the machine already, and of course we've got the zipper foot for when we put the zips in. Now I won't be using that one. Instead I should be using this foot, and this foot is one that that comes with this machine, and it's an integrated walking foot. But where the hole is, the needle will go through that, allowing me to get very, very close to the edge of where I want to work. Now, in a similar vein, as I start building up the layers, and certainly when we do the quilting aspects, then I will want to reach for the walking foot. And again, this is fully integrated, and it'll just clip onto the machine as I work, and it'll just guide through the layers as we go, making for smoother work. On my machine, I've popped in a new needle already, so we're good to go, and I've popped in some Aman thread, which is a Tex 40 thread. So when we make the Jas Bag, we're going to need a number of fabrics, but interestingly, we don't need that much fabric. We actually need 4 fat quarters of our quilter's cotton, one of which must be a long quarter if you are going to use a quarter of a fabric rather than working from a ½ meter. The reason being is that when we do that wrap aspect, the outer fabric, it will need to take 2 cuts, so it's going to need to be long and thin to get those out of it. Now in this make, I'm going to be using these 4 fabrics. It's a lovely dinosaur range I've had in my stash for ages, and I thought it'd make a really cute kids version of the bag. I'm not going to talk too much about these other than to say that they are 100% quilters cottons. In the pattern, we refer to fabrics 1 through to fabrics 4. I'm not going to get too tied down in which fabric I use where. You can interchange as much as you like. And what I actually quite like doing, most of you will know by now, is I don't actually pre-cut a lot of my fabrics in advance. I know a lot of you will, but I always tend to think that if you cut as you go, you can make decisions about which fabrics you want to use where as you get to it. So it just allows you to be a little bit more creative in your approach, particularly when you're making your first make and you're slightly unsure, well, I'm cutting this piece, but I'm not entirely sure where it's going to go or how it's going to feature in my make. So by doing it a bit at a time, you can make those decisions because, of course, your bag's going to start emerging in front of you. On top of your 4 quilters fabrics, there's some other products you're going to need. You're going to need some clear vinyl. So now if you have got some sparkly vinyl or anything a bit more interesting, you can use that, but you will just need a small piece of vinyl so you can have that transparent pocket. You're going to need some medium weight woven interfacing just to strengthen some of those pockets. And to create that little bit of squidge, I've already sewn it into place here, but you're going to need some H640. So it's a low loft, but when we fuse it to the outer wrap and the inner wrap, it's going to create a nice bit of squidge factor. If you fancy changing this H640 to a bosal, say a single-sided, you're going to get a bag with much more structure. Let me show you. So this bag has actually got bosal in it. Now I haven't written about this in the instructions, but one of my ladies wanted to test it and see how it appeared. And what it actually gives you is a much sturdier bag. But she did omit it from other spaces. So that's something you're going to want to play with if you like the look of that. We will be sticking with the plan today, following the instructions and just working with our H640. To complete the make, of course, you're going to need some zips. Now, it's entirely up to you whether you want to work with a number 3 zip, which you're going to see more in dressmaking, or the number 5 zip. This is the number 5, and this is a much chunkier zip, really. It's a lovely one. You can get them on the roll. So this is an on the roll zip, and I will just move the zip up and separate it to the length that I want. But you are going to need 2 zips for this make. Let's get started. Before we get started on the make, I actually write down here in the instructions there's some prep tasks to do. And when we go into the measurements table, I'm going to be calling these T1, like so. T1 meaning task 1, abbreviated to T1 in the cutting table. And I need you to prepare some bias binding strips. The first one here is going to be for that top handle. And all I've done is I have taken my piece, I've folded it in half, wrong sides together and pressed it. Opened it up and press both those long edges to the centre again, and when folded it's going to become a handle. You can apply some spray starch to this to make it a little firmer if you wish to do so. Then we have this long piece which is going to be our bias binding, and again I've done exactly the same thing by folding it in half, wrong sides together, opening it up and then pressing it back in. That's all you need to do, and then you can pop those pieces just to one side. The second task you need to do is to go ahead and apply any of those interfacing products, so your medium weight or your foam, to any of the parts that are needed. And you'll see that in the table, it will tell you where interfacing is needed throughout. So now I'm working on my inner wrap. So we've got 2 pieces. We've got an outer wrap and we've got an inner wrap, and they're going to be the same fabrics if you choose to do it that way. And we need to create a curved edge on one of the edges. The way we do that is we're just going to measure in 1.5 inches, just to give us some indicative points to work from. So with my pen, I'm just going to create a couple of lines. And then I'm going to use those markings as a little guide to bring in a rounded object of any size. If you wanted it to be a more obvious curve, you can use smaller items, really doesn't matter. But I'm just going to go in like so, and then I'm going to leave it be for now. So now we're going to put a number of placement lines in all the way along, and that's going to help us work out where we need to put all those different sections. So we're going to go ahead and pop those in according to the instructions. So there we go. This is our layout, and we can start working out where all of those different sections need to go. So now we're going to move on to the slip pocket. So we have our slip pocket, and this is pocket A. It's a long piece, and all we're going to do is fold it and press it in half, and then we're going to top stitch this upper edge. And I'm sewing about 1/8 of an inch away from the seam. I'm then going to take my pocket and I'm going to go back to my panel that we prepared earlier on, and it's going to get placed to the bottom edge. So I've gone ahead and I've top stitched this upper edge, and I've placed this pocket piece to the right hand side of the panel. So the curves are down here, we're placing it at the opposite end. And then with my friction pen, I've drawn a number of lines. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to base these 3 edges here on a longer stitch and then stitch these into place, being sure to reverse to lock stitch at the start and the ends. So I've just completed that section. I'm going to take it to the iron in a moment just to heat away those the lines that I drew previously. But before I do that, I'm going to move on to the next section because this will need ironing too. This is the flap that we're creating on that right hand side of the bag. We've got 2 pieces that are right sides together, and all I'm going to do is sew all the way around using my 1/4 inch seam allowance, remembering to reverse at the start and the end, removing your pins as you go. So we'll just work our way around, and when complete, we're just going to cut across diagonally each of those corners, which will create a better finish when we turn it through. Take the pin away. So now we're just going to cut across those 2 corners just like so. I'm going to turn it through, get my fingers into those corners so it's nice and sharp as much as we can already. And then I'm just going to pull it back, and I'm just going to take it to the ironing board just to flatten those creases. And when I come back, I'm then just going to top stitch all the way around. So that's all ironed, and now I'm going to top stitch. Now to start my top stitching, what I'm actually going to do is go to these open edges here and start on that edge, meaning that I don't actually have to do any reversing to lock it in, because that's all taken care of and it will be sewn into a seam later on. So I'm just going to work my way along, 1 more stitch there, and then rotate. And we're about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of our fabric. And when I come to this top edge, I'll just rotate just around the corner, and I'll sew just a few stitches just to lock it in, and then I will cut just to complete. So there's our flap complete. All I now need to do is baste it within our seam allowance, just this upper edge just here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we're going to attach this pocket that's just here. This is slip pocket B. So thus far what we've created is this pocket just here with our sections, and we've made our flap. So to complete this part, we're going to make this 1 pocket and attach our elastic. This 1 pocket is 1 piece of fabric. So here's our piece of fabric, and all I'm going to do now is this fabric is right sides together, like so. I've lined up the short edge, and I'm just going to stitch across the top there. So as I work along this top edge, when this is done, I'm going to take it to the ironing board, and I'm actually going to press those seams open and flat. But when that's done, I'm then going to return it back to this position and then press it, and it will give a lovely finish just to the top edge. I'll show you when I bring it back. So now I've turned it back through to the wrong side, so we can see this stitch line here, and that's the line that we're going to be working from. I've worked in by 1 inch, and I've worked down by 1.5 inch, and I've made markings, and I will repeat on the other side, and I'm going to connect those 2 with a line. Then I shall take it back to my sewing machine, and I will be sewing that line. like so. And I shall sew that line next, remove the excess fabric that's just here and turn it through to the other side. So remember to reverse at the start and the end, just to lock those stitches. So I've cut away the excess fabric and now I can just turn it through to the right side. Now again, you may want to use a little pokey tool just to really nudge those points out, and if you need to, go back in and reduce the excess fabric just a little bit further. But what we've got now is a newly formed shape, and that shape, when it's all put into place, is going to become our flap. So it's going to come down like so. I'm going to take it to the ironing board now and give it another iron, and then I'm going to top stitch around these edges just here. So now we've done all of our top stitching, what we need to do is create some creases in this to make it into a pocket. So the first thing I need to do is create a row of top stitching to the bottom edge, because when that's in place, it's actually going to be folded up. Before we do this though, what I actually need to do is create a line along here that will allow the flap to come up and over, and that will be just pressed into place. When I've got that press line, I'll then be able to bring this up to sit just beneath it and press. So it'll be like so, as a whole new pocket unit. Then I'll be able to do some stitching down the side to hold. So now we're going to add the closure, which in this case we're going to use a cam snap to make sure that we can connect the flap to the main pocket. I'm going to show you a bit of a trick of how we're going to get all this in now. Now we're going to need a marking pen for this, ruler to find the midpoint in the flap and on the base, and then of course we're going to need the cam snap tool and the cam snaps. The cam snaps, we need two pieces that are these dome pieces just like so, and then we're going to need what's called a male piece and a female piece. The female has got the indentation, the male has got the pokey out bit. Okay. Typically we will put the male onto this top section and it will be inserted and connected to the female component. The first thing I need to do is find my midpoint. So all I need to do is measure the width from left to right, and we know it's going to be at 2.5 inches. Now you can really choose anywhere you like on here as long as it is 2.5 inches. And just make a little marking with the pen. I've made it nice and large so hopefully you can see it big and well. Now all we need to do now is understand where the other part needs to go, and this is where I use my pin. I'm going to push my pin through so that it will connect to the next piece just there, if we can see. And all I'm going to do now is put in a really big ugly marking, and that'll be there for when I need it later on. Now all we need to do is take one of our dome pieces and push it through the hole at the top, and it will just come through quite nicely. We take our male piece with a poking out section and pop it over the top, and then we're going to take our tool, and this has got a dome shape where that black is, and the dome of the cam snap will fit into it, and it's not going to wriggle around at all. It sits really comfortably, and when that's in and not moving, we can just go down and give it a little squeeze, and it's in. One side done. Now all we need to do is the opposite over here. This time the dome needs to go on the inside of the item. So I'm just going to fiddle around until I can feel that little spiky bit and then push through. When that's pushed through, I'm going to take the female part, place it over the top, go back. We're looking for the dome so that the dome part of the cam snap can rest inside it. There's no wiggling around, nothing's moving. Give it a squeeze. And that is our cam snap all inserted, like so. All we now need to do is go back and collect our inner wrap panel and place it to the bottom edge. I'm going to leave a little bit of space just to the bottom, and I can sew that in at the bottom edge and down the sides just to hold it all as one unit. When that's done, we're going to go in and we're going to finally finish by adding, stretching very gently, a piece of elastic just above the flap here. We're at the next stage of the Jas Bag where we're going to be making the pouch element. Now at the start of this video, I introduced some of the tools that I would be using, but what I didn't do was cover the tools I'm going to be using specifically in this section. The reason is I want to talk to you about what I'm going to be using, but what you might want to use if you haven't got the tools that I've got. So this is the pouch that we're now talking about, and as mentioned before, we've got this gusset. Now the gusset has got a drawstring in it. And in order for the drawstrings to come through, we need to have holes. Now in this example, which was made by my good friend Sarah, she doesn't have the equipment that I'm going to be using today. So instead what she did is she made 2 buttonholes using her machine. That allowed the channel to be drawn through. Her preferred method for making the drawstrings was to actually hand make some bias binding as well, loop them through and then add her attachments to the end. I think you'll agree it looks lovely. What I like to use is my PRYM Vario tool, and the PRYM Vario tool is going to allow me to insert these. These are eyelets, and I'm going to be using 8mm eyelets today, and these are metal, so they're going to stand the test of time, especially if we're drawing in and out all of the time with our cord. So I'm going to show you how to use the PRYM Vario tool to install the eyelets. I'm then going to be putting through my pre-made cord, which is this lovely blue and white cord, and I'll be using, of course, a safety pin to do that. The old methods are the best. When that's attached, I'm then going to be using these stoppers, the cord stoppers, in this beautiful teal blue. Oops, there we go. As long as I can find it later on, I'll be attaching those to the ends. So let's get started. So everything we do on the outer wrap of the pouch, we're going to do to the inside as well. There's no bagging out process to this. You'll see we've already got our foam attached to the back, and then all we're going to do is pull one of these long edges over to meet the other, and we're looking to align these shorter side edges. When they're aligned, just add some clips to hold. Just a couple of clips will do, and then we're going to sew each length, remembering to reverse at the start and the end. When that's done, we're going to turn this 2D shape into a 3D shape by going into the corners, pulling it out. This will pop out, we will clip it again, and we will sew both sides. You need to repeat that on the outside and the inside so that they both look something like this. So now that's complete, I've just popped one inside the other so that the foams are touching, and then I've clipped that upper edge. I'm now just going to base sew this top edge together using a longer stitch within the seam allowance just to hold them all nice, tidy and secure. So now what we need to do is attach that drawstring component to the pouch. You'll have a long piece of fabric a bit like this, and what you need to do is find that midpoint. So the way I did it is I just fold it over lengthwise like so, gave it a little iron, so we've got a pre-press, and then I folded it over short end to short end, and that gave me my midpoint, which is here. You can just see a bit of a crease line in there. Using my friction pen, so it doesn't matter that I'm drawing on there. Then what we need to do is just on one half of it, so this section here, we need to add some fusible fleece to it, and that's just going to give a little bit of extra strength when we put these eyelets in. So now what I need to do is put 2 eyelets in, one here and one here, and they need to be even. So the way I can do this is I'll use my ruler, and I've just got this 1 inch line here along that center fold line here. It doesn't matter which number I work from as long as I work outwards evenly. So I think I'm just going to go over here, so just over 1 inch. So I'm 1 inch down from that crease line and I'm just over 1 inch out from this centre line here. First thing I need to do is punch some holes through here. So I'll get my PRYM Vario tool. I'm using the 8mm sizes and I just need to insert these 2 parts into the unit. That goes into the bottom. This one goes into the top. If you're interested in how to put eyelets in a slower way, there is a video purely demonstrating this on my YouTube channel. We'll be sure to put the links into the description box below for this. When we're happy that we're in the right place, all we're going to do is lower this down, give it a little squidge, little click there, and it's taken away a bit of fabric, and there's our hole. And then we'll move over to repeat the process. Whatever we do on one side, we're going to do to the other. There we go, 2 nice neat holes. So we're now done with those 2 parts. So now it's a case of inserting the eyelet. To insert the eyelet, we need to put the additional 2 parts of the tool set into the PRYM Vario tool. So now we're just going to take the eyelet as we're looking at it and we're going to push it through. The hole will always be smaller than the hole on the metal. It's intended that way so you stretch your fabric over it. We then go to the washer and on one side we see this shadow, and that shadow line, which is not on this side, can you see that's darker? That's the side we need to have facing up, and we just lay it over the top like so. We then just take this and this will lay within here. It's not going to move around, a bit like the cam snap. It had nowhere to go, and when it's in we can just give that little squidge down and that's our eyelet in. Lovely. So now we just need to repeat on the other side. And there we go, that's all in. So now let's go ahead and complete making this gusset. So now we've got our eyelets in, we'll take the short ends and we're going to get them to meet end to end. We're going to clip them or pin them, and then we're going to sew to connect those ends together. When they're sewn, we're then going to take this edge here, we're going to fold it over so it's all wrong side to wrong side and press it all the way around. Finally, when that's in place, we're going to create a channel just by doing 2 rows of simple stitching. So now I've ironed this, I've got a crisp edge, and I need to base sew these edges together. Because I'm working in a circle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my free arm, like so, put that on the floor, and then that'll help me just feed this around the free arm and it'll whiz around that just a little bit faster. Now we're just going to feed our cord through that channel. So old-fashioned way of doing this really, with a good old safety pin, and we're just going to go in and start feeding it around that channel that we've just created through one end and outside the other. I haven't cut my cord yet, I just left it at one length until I'm sure that I am with it. So, we make sure that our length is where we want it to be, and then we can cut it, and then we need to thread it through these holes. It won't go easily, and I would recommend you get a lighter and just burnish, is that the word? I like to just flash a fire over it, just to singe those ends together, which I will do now. Okay, so I've got that on now. So all I need to do now Just tie a knot in it, and I pull really tight on this bit as well, as tight as you can. And then I trim that end again close too. And that will just fit right inside out the way. Again, give that a really good pull. Trim it down and pull that over. And that is your drawstring all done. Doesn't that look cute? Love it. We've got our pouch and we've got our gusset channel, and we need to attach the two. Now, we're not hiding any of the seams. Well, we are, but we're going to be using the binding that we made right at the start, that T1 action. So this needs to be now joined to the top like so. And the way we're going to do it is by actually flipping it upside down so that that will sit inside the whole unit. And now I'm going to line up. Remember that line marking that I made earlier on the halfway point? I'm just going to line that up like so, and I'm going to clip it. And then I'm going to go all the way around and clip it into place with all those raw edges meeting. When that's done, I'm then just going to stitch it with my basting stitch on the sewing machine just to hold it in place. Now, if you did find that your gusset is a little bit too big, just go back in and take a little bit out of that short seam that you did right at the start. If you are unsure and you're watching this in advance, then maybe you would prefer to just sew the end and then just make sure at that point that it fits. We do talk about fitting in the pattern. So we're back at the machine, and I'm just going to work around now. I've put my free arm back on, and I'm just going to sew that to hold it permanently in place. So now we're going to add the binding. Now I'm going to work from the inside of the bag and work all my way around. So I've gone to the back of the bag, as it were, and I'm going to, where that first crease is, I'm just going to pin that, and I'm going to pin that into place. And I'm going to pin all the way around. I'm going to start sewing where that first clip is, not the edge of the fabric. And I will stop sewing with leaving a good gap in between as well. And that's so we can do a proper quilter's join. Teaching you all of the skills today. So I shall stop. Oh no, we can go a little bit further. There. So you can see we've got a good end here and we've got a good end here. So we're going to start and we're going to sew all the way around to here, and then we're going to stop. So before I do this, I'm actually going to switch out for one of the walking feet now, and that's just because I'm now starting to work with multiple layers of fabric, and I just need a little bit of an extra helping hand getting through them all just that little bit easier. So I'm just going to click that in, lock it into position, which you'll have heard it just do, and I'm just going to tighten it up now. Now I just need to be mindful about where the needle is, and the easiest way for me to make sure that the needle's in the right place is to turn the power off, turn the power on, and it's reset itself. Can we check? There we go. So that's perfectly in place now. I'm going to turn the stitch length up to a 3.5, a basting length again, and I'm going to work my way around. So you need a bit of a muscles now. Get your muscles in there and start working. That bit of fabric you've just cut off is effectively a measuring gauge now, and what we need to do is overlay these one on top of another with that width's different. So I'm just going to trim this down a little bit because it's slightly too long really. It's getting in the way. And then, so that's there. And now we're going to lay this one over. And from that point there, where the edge is, we're going to lay that in. And we're going to trim this piece down to match. Now we should have the perfect match to bring these together. We put them right sides together, so it creates the shape of an A. Now you can draw the line if you wish to, or you can eyeball it, but there's the A bar, and we're just going to sew straight across there. You definitely want to get a couple of pins in though. and you are going to have to smoosh this as you go along. Smooshing means this bag, just smoosh it down and out of your way. Don't worry about reverse stitching. Before we trim anything, I always make sure that it's folded in the right direction. So that it's all in the right place. So now I can trim off, don't worry it's wobbly, trim off the excess, pull it into place and complete that row of stitching there. It is as simple as that, and people get themselves really worried about that step, but it's really not hard, as you can see. And now all you need to do to complete this little bag is bring this over. We'll use pins here. Bring this over. That original crease wants to come over like so. And then you can clip or pin. Let's use some pins because it's a little bit tidier here. I prefer to hand stitch this step, but I'm not sure time will permit for that today. So if you need to, you can take it to the machine to sew it, or we can pretend I've done it and I will complete it later on. I promise you though that if you are after a really professional finish, it is worth taking it home, wait until you've got 10 minutes spare time and hand finish all of these bindings. Certainly that's what I'll be doing with the binding of the whole perimeter of the wrap bag. It looks stunning when it's been done like that. The problem when we use the machine is that I can guarantee this line will be straight here, but I can't guarantee how straight it will be here. Having said that, when I flipped it over, what I have just kind of noticed is because the fabrics are the same between the binding and the gusset, you probably wouldn't actually notice. So, that said, I might take back everything that I've just said and go for it. So I've taken the free arm off and I've got it underneath the foot now. I've turned my stitch length up to a 3.5. I'm using my 1/8 of an inch foot and I'm going to take it really steady as I work around now. Turn my speed down because automatically I've started sewing fast. And we'll take those pins out as we approach them. So now what we need to do is we need to take our cutie patootie pouch and sew it into this section here. Now we're going to be sewing along this edge here and it will be covering this edge here. The idea here is that you are going to be covering these raw edges. Now, if you are concerned in any way, shape or form that you haven't got it as neat as you would like, or you are in any doubt, pop a piece of binding down here first. I'm going to give it a go though, because one of my testers actually gave me a great tip that I'm going to share with you now that never made it into the instructions, but that's the benefit of watching a video, isn't it? What I want you to do is reach inside and pull your lining out. Therefore, you're now only working with one layer of fabric and you're going to lay it down and lay it over, just like so, centering it, and you're going to sew that in place along here. Now, if you remember right at the start, I mentioned my awl. This is a prime example of where I'm going to be using my awl instead of fingers. So as I work along, I will use this just to push it through and support it through as I stitch. I will use a couple of pins just to pin this into place, but it might feel a little bit clumsy and difficult. So like I say, just to reiterate, it is designed to finish and cover those raw edges. But if you're concerned, just pop a strip of binding down here. When this side's done, lift it over and do the same with your second edge along here. And it should line up somewhere in the region of this line. So let's do that. So let's take this under the machine. Use your awl, like I say, pop it down and we're going to reverse a few stitches just to lock it in. The awl, like I say, is just to help guide and support the fabric through whilst we're working with all of those layers, because it does need a little bit of encouragement to go through. So that's all sewn in now. We've got that pouch attached quite nicely. And like I say, if you want to add any further strips down the side, then you can. We're now going to move across and transition into adding the pockets down here. That being the clear vinyl pocket, which will sit up here, and then the fabric pouch that will sit just here. Let me show you in this one that was previously made. So there's our pocket in, and we're going to be attaching the vinyl pocket now and the fabric pocket here. So what we need to do is we need to make our tabs for the zips. So we're going to be doing that 4 times, and I'm going to show you how in just a moment. And then we've got 4 of these strips. We've got 1, 2, and then on the underside we've got a 3 and a 4. And we're going to be attaching that to one of these zips, 2 on one side and 2 on the other. So let's look at how we attach those zip ends. You'll have 4 squares of fabric. All you need to do is place one on the underside of the zip tape with that zip pull facing upwards, flip it over, take it to the sewing machine and stitch along. Use your awl if you need to, and then like this end you'll just pull those pieces back, iron them into place or finger press them into place, and then we can move on to attach these strips. The way we do the strips is we've got these pre-pressed lines. We're going to open it up, lay it down. If you want to use the tape, remember I had the tape earlier on, then we can add that and use that now. That will get laid on top like so, with those edges lined up. Then we'll get our next piece of tape. Again, we can pop some tape on here, place it on the top there, and then we'll sew inside that crease. Then they will all flip outwards like so, and we can press that into place. Well, let's go ahead and do that tape first. So we pop one side in so we can see that that zip tape is sandwiched in here, and I've given it a bit of a press, added some starch spray. But let's do this side together. So I've attached my tape just down the side. Can be a bit awkward to peel off, so just be patient. Ironically, that has come straight off that time. Can you believe it? Open the tape up and lay it along that edge. Do need to work to keep the zip pull out the way as you go. And then flip it over, and then to the other side of the zip tape we're going to add another row of double-sided tape. If you tear it rather than cut it, it will be easier to take off. There we go, that's it. And then we can lay this final strip on top like so, lining up those edges. Then we can take it to the sewing machine and sew inside that crease. And then as we've done with this side, press it across to complete. So we've attached all of our strips to this one zip just here, and now we've got a little sandwich here. What I've done is I've opened it up and I've just slipped that piece of vinyl in. Did use a piece of tape just to stick it and get it started, but I now need to run a row of top stitching down here just to hold it securely. If you've got a fancy machine and you want to use decorative stitch, do consider sewing it down there at this point. Then we've got 2 binding pieces. We're going to open one up and we're going to lay that on top to the other side of the vinyl, which I appreciate is hard to see now, and you're going to sew it down into the fold just here and it'll flip over. Let me show you on the previous make. So what we're doing right now is we're working from here to the right. So we've inserted our vinyl into to create a little sandwich, and we've sewn a row of stitching. We've actually got 2 rows of stitching, one next to the zip and one to hold the layer secure. And then we've got that sandwich piece just here, that when it's flipped back we can top stitch to hold it again. And when it's all laid on top of the panel later on, we'll be able to do a row of top stitching close to the pocket edge of the pouch. So I'm going in with my awl again, as always. Make sure you get all those threads out. We don't want them in You might need to go back and just pull those out at a later point, and we can work our way down. I'm going to rotate at this point so I can come up the other side nice and close. If you need to stop, lift your foot, tilt it away, and then you'll be able to slide your zip out of the way. Up to complete, and finish off by going across to keep your stitches out of the way. That's all in and looking lush. So now we need to do this left hand side. So again, all we've done is we've just pushed that zip into that little sandwich, and we're going to top stitch down here. And again, if you want to, just rotate around and run up this side of the tape too. When that's done, all we then need to do is attach these pieces to complete that top section, which is very, very exciting. The way we're going to do it is we're going to create ourselves a little sandwich. Imagine that's all sewn in. We're going to lay this in with that fabric right side up. We'll line that up and lay it on top. We'll get our next piece, we'll lay it on top, and we're going to sew a line that will allow us then to flip these back on itself. And again, you can top stitch if you wish to do so. Then we're going to come back and we'll attach our final piece of binding that again will secure these two pocket pieces together and create a neat tidy edge. We'll lay this on top, we'll stitch, we'll flip away, and that will get sewn into place along with that edge when it's on its inner wrap unit. Oh, it's been troublesome. That's the only problem with tape sometimes, it can wiggle its way around. So, but I just need it to take a little bit of the pain away from me for the saving of putting pins in and such like. But you know, the good thing is I can manipulate it and move it to get it into a position if I want to. So now I'm going to go ahead and sew along this edge, and then these will get flipped away. So these are sewn in now, and I appreciate this is all looking a bit messy, but we'll straighten all that up at the end and it'll all get hidden away quite nicely. So we do need to do some top stitching just here, which I'll do in just a moment, but I want to get this last strip in now. So I'm going to lay this down right side to right side, and I'm going to sew along this little crease line here. And what's that going to do is it's going to close off this pocket quite nicely. Then it'll get flipped over, and like I mentioned before, we will then top stitch these two edges when the whole unit is in place. So let's go and do that now. So it's time, let's check that it fits. So now all we're going to do is we're going to bring this in. I'm going to use those lines that we had before and start lining that up to the edge. Oh my word, this is super exciting. That's all lined up beautifully there. Can you see that's gone right to the edge there beautifully? Just going to bring it down a little bit, get the best fit in there, and then we can get some pins into it to start securing it. And then we're going to be doing all of the stitching. Again, if you're all about a bit of fancy stitching, it could be a good opportunity for you now. If you want to get a label in, maybe you've got your own little label you like to put into things, pop it in now. Think about where that might want to go. On the inside of the bag, wouldn't it look nice sewn to this piece of binding here or sewn here? Lots of choices really. So we just need to focus now on sewing this in And you know what? I'm just going to grab myself a quick label and I'm going to tuck it in just here so it just pokes through. And then when that's sewn in down here and down here, we're going to put a basting stitch into these long lengths so that's permanently in. That'll allow us time then to square up here. And then I'm just going to over sew one of these rows here so that it'll separate the two pockets off from each other. So I've just slotted a little label in here, I've just popped it under, and when I come down to sew this edge here, what I can do is I could just divert around there if I want to, or you can just do some hand stitches later on. So that's it, we're all ready to go. We are now working on the outer panel. Now I've done a lot of the prep work already, so let me just walk you through. The outer panel, do you remember it was cut from that long quarter that I mentioned right back at the start? It was a long rectangle piece and we fused it to that H640. Then what I've done is we're going to quilt it, put these lines through to create a bit of texture and to hold it really securely. You can do it however you like. You can do zigzags, you can do straight lines, you can do none at all. That's entirely up to you. But in this case, I drew, starting at the center line and working my way out, I sewed even lines using that long stitch thread. Don't know whether you can see, but you can see little pops of pink. That was a tension rung on my machine. And I know it sounds crazy. I saw it was incorrect, but I left it because I quite like the flex coming through. So that is intentional. Now down on this end, what I've done is I simulated that curve that's on that other panel as well, which I've now cut down. So they're both exactly the same. I cut through both layers all in one go. What we then go on to do is all of those cam snap fastenings. Now we've created two markings here with our friction pen, but we are not going to add the snaps at this moment in time. We're going to do that later on when we can double check everything's spot on. But we can do the ones down at this end. We've got 3 markings on each side, and I've given you the measurement on how to get the placement for those. But effectively, I mentioned that we've done 3 settings, so that the more empty your bag is, the further down you would go to get a tighter fit. And when you've got things like wool or toys or anything else like that in your bag, then you can loosen it off, which is why we've given different settings. These are going to be all of your female cam snaps that we put in. So you're going to need 6 of those dome finishes and 6 of the female finishes. Be brave, mix them up if you want to, or just stick with the one colour. Let's go ahead and put those in now. We've only got one other piece of fancy fabric to attach, and that's our grab handle on the outside of the bag. Right back at the start, again, this was one of your instructions to prepare and fold it in. When it's folded in, to do this, all I want you to do is actually fold it back on itself like so. Like that. Clip it to hold. Do the same at this end. Creates like a W shape, that, you see? W. And then we're going to sew across each of these short ends. When that's sewn, we're going to cut off our angles and we'll be able to flip it all through, and that'll become a nice, tidy handle. we're going back to our curved edge just here. Let me bring it down. And we're now going to attach our handle. Now you can sew this into place or you can use rivets. Today I'm going to be just simply sewing it in. So I've given you the measurement from the curved edge of how far down you want to be. And you want to be 1 inch in. Now luckily I don't need to measure because I know that these are 1 inch. And we're just going to pin just to hold through all layers. And also a little box to go around it. This one wants to be eased up and in, keeping it steady on that line. And again, we're going to pin it to hold. And then we're going to sew a box all the way around to secure. So we've done that, the handle's in. So now I've taken this and I've laid it right side down and I've laid that inner section on top. So we've got all those layers together now. I've pinned the layers together as best I can, obviously avoiding the vinyl. And I'm going to sew close to the edge all the way around to secure as one. And when that's done, then we're going to go ahead and add our final cam snaps that will help with the closure. And we'll do that just by lifting it up and over and make sure that we're happy first with the position, making sure all these are lined up nice and even. Quick eyeball shows me already that we are in the right area. So now I'm just going to add those final cam snaps into position. Easing that through, working from the outside of the pouch inwards, making sure you're using the male snaps. Press to secure. So all that's left to do is to add some binding to the full edge of the bag. Now we've already had a tutorial on how to do this, but let's do it just the one more time. Now I've given you instructions obviously in making your own binding, so if you want a colour match or a contrast you can do that. But for today I'm just going to use shop bought binding. Because I'm going to be machining the final edge rather than hand stitching, I'm going to be starting off by working on the inside of the bag. I'm going to start in an area that's slightly less conspicuous, which I think is about here. And I will start away in again, so I'm not fighting at the end when it comes to doing a join. And I'll just lay it into place and I'm going to sew in the ditch all the way around. And I'll stop when I get to about the vinyl. And then I will meet you back here. So we're back at the start and we need to do that join again, just like we did before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the binding over here and I'm just going to cut myself a strip down. Because remember, this is our sort of measuring stick, and we're going to open it up. And we're going to lay one over the other, like so, and lay that on top. And that is our measuring gauge. So the fabric that's now on the top, we can trim back to meet the edge of our measuring stick. And then I can lay this one between it. There we go. And pull this one out, and then that's showing me that I need to cut that down just there. Like so. Open up our edges, lay it over one over top of the other, and we're going for that letter A. It will feel awkward. Everything is getting in the way now, but remember, it doesn't need to be pretty. We're not going to see this later on. It's just going to help us keep things a bit more together. If you've got a friend in the sewing room with you, ask them to just sort of scrunch this up for you and hold it out of the way whilst you try and sew it. But again, don't worry about it being pretty or tidy. I'm just going to go in underneath and make sure it's all pulled out. That one's just flipped just there. I'm just going to grab it and sew. Now remember, before you cut anything away, you must just do a quick check that you've definitely done it in the right direction. So give it a pull, and can you see that's all in the same direction? So that's good to go. So now we can cut away the excess and now sew the remainder of that edge into place. And what you've got there is your perfect fit. And it's a bit that everybody worries about. So hopefully twice I've shown you that that is not worth worrying about at all. So the binding's in place. All we have to do now is finish it. Now, guys, I'm going to be totally honest with you. What I'm about to do, please don't do it. Take your time now. You're going to flip it over, pin this binding into place like so, and then go sit down on your sofa and hand stitch this into place. Work this into place, manipulate it, tidy up any loose threads that you've got now, and just go around, slip stitch it down. It will create the most beautiful finish, and you're going to have the most wonderful bag you're going to be so thrilled with. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do it on the sewing machine. I'm going to use my white thread. I'm going to work from the top, and what's going to happen is I'm going to end up with this white line round here, and it's a criminal activity. Work on these corners. So we've got a perfect corner there. Flick it over like so on one side. Pin it if you need to. And get that into place. Fiddle with it until you've got that perfect little point there. And then pin it or clip it to hold it. And then you can work all the way around. Make sure you get rid of all these threads. And that will be soon complete. Okay, you all know me. I couldn't do it. I couldn't. It was looking too good. I hand stitched it into place. And honestly, look at it. Can you see what I mean? That's just so neat and tidy. And it just really, really finishes it off, doesn't it? It's lovely. And you know, it didn't take me long at all. So there we go. There is the wrap. We did it! I made another Jas bag. What is it? What do you call a huddle of Jas bags? We are just the Jasettes over here. Look at them all. They are growing in numbers. So yeah, we did it. Here we go in my little dinosaur fabric, which I think is super, super cute. And it's come up beautifully. And like I mentioned, I went for the hand stitching where it needed it in the end. It so deserved it. Got a lovely handle to the top, so it's making it nice and strong. And again, just to mention, you could have put rivets in if you wish to do so. We've quilted this wrap feature, giving it some interest and texture. We've got multiple poppers here, so I can make it tighter and smaller or larger depending on how full the bag is. We open it up and look, tremendous, isn't it? I love it. We've got this big poofy pouch with this beautiful lining, gorgeous toggles on the end there, lots and lots of gorgeous features. We've got this cute pocket system down here. Definitely going to be putting some knitting needles in here, I think. And then we've got our little popper pocket just here and a slip behind it. Before we go over to this side, got our vinyl pocket and our little pouch just here too. We've got everything. Finish off with this cute little label. I thoroughly enjoyed making this today, and it's just been an absolute pleasure. So I'm going to take this opportunity once again to thank Donna, who has worked with me to co-design the Jas bag. She did a tremendous job, and I couldn't be more happy with this. If you have enjoyed today's tutorial, please once again do consider giving my YouTube channel a like and subscribe. There's lots of information on there, tips, tricks, other tutorials. In fact, if you've made this and you fancy trying something else, have a go at the Elizabeth. I've done another brilliant tutorial on how to make Elizabeth. This has sold over and over again. It's proven so popular and I think you will love it too. But I guess all there is to say for now is thank you for joining me today. Go make, go enjoy yourself and have a wonderful day.